All episodes of A Trial by Podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only. Much to their parents' dismay, neither host is a lawyer, journalist, or investigator. Just two people with microphones and Wi-Fi. All actions discussed are alleged, and all parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. For the full legal mumbo-jumbo, check the show notes.
On February 24th, 2023, a young au pair forgot the lunches that she had packed that morning. So she turned the car around and she headed back to the family's home. When she pulled up, there was a car in the driveway that she didn't recognize. So she poked her head inside and called out for Christine Banfield, the mother of the little girl that she cared for, who should have been home alone that day. Christine didn't respond to her, and the au pair's intuition told her that something was wrong. So she called Christine's husband, Brendan, and asked him to come home. According to Brendan, when he got upstairs, he found a stranger on top of his wife, stabbing her. Brendan says that in a desperate attempt to save his wife, he shot the man, Joseph Ryan. But unfortunately, it was too late, and Brendan held Christine in his arms as she died. Now, on the surface, it seemed pretty clear what happened here. Joseph Ryan was a predator who had chosen Christine seemingly at random. Brendan Banfield was a husband who just tried to save his wife and couldn't. Except, police found messages on a computer in the home. Messages that appeared to be from Christine herself, inviting Joseph Ryan over to the house. And the more investigators looked at the physical evidence, the more Brendan's story started coming apart at the seams. This is part one of the murders of Christine Banfield and Joseph Ryan. And I promise you, this story is not at all what it seems. Welcome back to the pod, everybody. I am your host, Kelsey, and for, I think, the third week in a row, we're back with Alexis.
Hi.
And I know that you guys have been enjoying Alexis because I see all your comments, so we're happy to have her back. And the best part about it, guys, is she's going to be here next week, too, because this is a two-potter. We got a two-potter. I got a crazy story for you, and it's actually a very recent case. The trial just closed in, I think it was late January of this year. The trial just ended. So it's an insane one. We're about to go on a ride. So I think with that, if your name is Alexis, leave us a 5-star rating. If your name is Alex, leave us a 5-star rating. I'm calling you out, Alex. If your name is Alexa, I'm really sorry. I know your life has been hard ever since Amazon dropped the Alexa, but I'm going to need you to leave us a 5-star rating as well. Yeah, I think that's it. And then remember, if you guys want to listen ad-free, you can listen ad-free on Patreon. The link is in the show notes. $2.22 a month to listen ad-free on Patreon. And I am officially starting bonus content in May. I was hoping it was going to be April, but we're recording this on March 29th, and it's not going to be April, brother. But if I announce that it's going to be May, then I'm held to it because I am true to my word. So it's going to be May. It's going to be May. Sorry, just hit me. But yeah, so go ahead and subscribe to that. If you guys are already subscribed to the ad-free tier for the $2.22, you're going to get an offer for it to be a little bit cheaper. It's really not going to be that much, like, I don't know, 10% cheaper or something to upgrade to the next level. So it might be a good time if you want ad-free episodes this month, and then next month, then you're like locked in at a lower price for
we love a deal.
We love a deal. But yeah, with all of that being said, we're getting into the story. Let's rock and roll. So today's story starts with a 911 call.
2023 80205.
Fairfax County 911, where's your emergency?
I need help. My friend, she just was stuck in the night now. She's bleeding a lot. I don't know what to do anymore.
Okay, where are you located? What's your address?
Oh my God.
Take a deep breath for me. Just let me know your address.
13.
Okay, 13.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath for me. You're on Stablebrook Way? Are you on Stablebrook Way? What's your house number?
It's, what's the number of this?
Is there somebody else there that can give me the address?
13230 Stablebrook Way.
Okay. And what's your name and what's going on?
My name is Brendan Banfield. I'm a federal agent. This is my house. There's somebody here. I shot him. But he stabbed her. She's bleeding. She got several marks on her neck. What do I do?
Okay. So what I need you to do is apply direct pressure directly to where she's bleeding from, okay? And if it becomes soaked, just add more cloth to it. It's already there. How old is the person?
I don't know.
The person that's bleeding?
37.
Okay. Okay, so the person that you shot, where is he?
I don't know him.
Okay, where is he though?
He's here. He's on the ground.
Okay. Okay. And the person that he stabbed, where are they now? Are they still in the house? I have to come to you.
He's bleeding. It's my wife.
This is what I don't know what to do.
Okay, so I want you to get a clean cloth and apply direct pressure to where you're bleeding from, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, are you the one that's bleeding? Just keep applying pressure. Don't remove it. If it becomes soaked, just add more cloth to what is already there. Do not use a tourniquet. If one is already on, don't remove it. And don't throw or flush any blood-soaked items, okay? And, sir, I need you not to touch the weapons or disturb the scene at all. And don't touch or remove any impaled object, okay?
Okay. The woman you hear on the call is the au pair. So she was basically a live-in nanny for the family.
Okay.
So you hear her, she makes the 911 call, and she's so overcome. She can't answer the questions properly. She gives the phone over to the husband, Brendan Banfield. And you hear him on the call identify himself as a federal agent. And I would like to clarify, federal agent makes it sound like he's like in the CIA or
like
the FBI. He works for the IRS in the criminal investigation division. So like he's technically a federal agent, but he's investigating white collar financial crimes. Like he's like an accountant, like he studied accounting and he's like going through the books, like looking for fraud and things like that.
Federal agent.
He is a federal agent. Like he does carry a weapon. He is required to carry a weapon. He was required to like do training and things like that. But like, he's not like an FBI agent. He is like, he works in an office. Okay. I just want to make that clear just so you can get the vibe of, you know, him in a stressful situation like this.
It is a weird thing to say, though. No?
Yeah, like to say I'm a federal agent.
Like, I wouldn't be like, hi, I'm a postal worker.
Like,
my wife has been stabbed.
And if you, and that's my point is like, if you're an FBI agent and you are like investigating murders, all right, fine. Like, I guess that makes sense to like say over the phone. But like when you just work for the IRS, like I don't get it. But I don't know if he's like trying to establish trust or like, you know, like I'm one of you guys. Like, I don't know what it is. But yeah, so when officers arrived at the Banfield home that morning, they were met with what Fairfax County police would later describe in their very careful official language as, quote, an appalling scene, end quote.
You may have said this already. Where is this?
This is in Virginia.
Okay.
Virginia. Sorry, it took me a moment off the top of my head. But yeah, so the house itself gave nothing away from the outside. It sits at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac in Herndon. It was like a 2-story Georgian brick revival, like very nice, very well-kept home, and just indistinguishable from its neighbors in the kind of Northern Virginia suburb where federal workers like Brendan Banfield and healthcare professionals like his wife, Christine, they buy houses, they raise kids, and they think pretty reasonably that their safe. This is a safe neighborhood. Their neighbors are safe people, all of these things. Now, body camera footage that was later played at trial documented the first moments that first responders had inside the home. So officers found Brendan in the upstairs master bedroom, kneeling over his wife Christine's body with both hands pressed against her neck wounds, applying pressure, just like we heard the 911 dispatcher tell him to do. He was very visibly emotional. He was crying. He was asking for help, asking about Christine's condition as they're, the first responders are looking at her. And he was asking where his daughter was. Because here's the thing. His daughter was in the basement of the home. Now, and we'll get to kind of the moments leading up to all of this in a second here. Now, of course, there was blood on his hands. The body camera footage was showing the scene that was very gruesome, very emotional. And it was emotional enough that both Brendan's family and Christine's family wept watching it in the courtroom. Now, a few feet away from where Christine was found lying was the lifeless body of a man that no one in the room recognized. Now, he would later be identified as Joseph Ryan, but the au pair and Brendan Banfield did not know who this man was. They said that they didn't recognize him. Now, he was declared dead at the scene from 2 gunshot wounds, one to the head and one to the chest. And his body, investigators would later note, was found with both legs tucked underneath the bed and his hands crossed over his chest, one hand placed over the gunshot wound, like as if he was shot and then was grabbing at the wound. Now, Christine and Joseph's blood had soaked through the carpeting, through the foam padding underneath, and soaked down into the subfloor. And I know that's gruesome, but just to give you an idea of what kind of scene this was there is blood everywhere. The lead crime scene detective, Terry Leach, later described the photographs from that room as so graphic that he declined to show them to the open courtroom. So these photos were not even shown to the jury. They weren't shown at trial because they felt, unnecessary and just incredibly gruesome and disturbing. Now, there was a knife found on or near the floor, which I'm pretty sure it was just found on the floor. One report said near the floor. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? But yeah, there's a knife on the floor, which is likely the weapon that was used to wound Christine's neck. And there were 2 firearms, which is interesting, not just one. Now, of course, we know that Christine and Brendan's 4-year-old daughter, she was in the basement, and thankfully she was unharmed. She didn't witness the scene, and they had put her down there beforehand just to make sure she wasn't going to see what was going on. Christine was rushed to the hospital where she would later be pronounced dead, and Brendan actually rode in the ambulance with her, holding her hand and sobbing while she died. And she likely died before she even arrived at the hospital, but that's where they do the declarations. Now, meanwhile, the au pair, Juliana, and the daughter were taken to police headquarters because Brendan's going with Christine to the hospital, and they need to get Juliana's side of the story. They need to know what happened here. Now, the weird thing about the scene that they noticed right away, like while they're at the house, is that there was no sign of forced entry anywhere in the house. There was no broken windows. The door wasn't kicked in. There's not even like a scratched lock. Like there's just no sign that anyone broke in. It looks like this Joseph Ryan or whoever started all of this just walked into the home through an unlocked door. So the question is, how did what started as an ordinary day for Christine end in her murder alongside a stranger that she had never met before in her own bedroom? And you can imagine for police, this is a little bit of like a doozy at the scene of like, what do you mean you guys don't recognize this guy? You don't know who this guy is who's randomly in here?
Maybe the wife knows him.
Well, and that's the thing is people are wondering of like, okay, well, what was Christine up to? And here's the thing about Christine is it's not like she lived this high-risk lifestyle. She was a mother, she was a nurse, and she was just any ordinary 37-year-old woman living an ordinary life. She actually grew up on Long Island, New York, and overall, she had a really happy childhood. She did struggle with a medical condition that caused her to bruise and bleed easily. I assume this is like anemia. Isn't that what like makes you like thins your blood and makes you bleed a lot? But nowhere said that she had anemia. Like they just said that she had this condition. So I don't know exactly what the condition was. But this did like affect her childhood a little bit just because she couldn't play like contact sports. She had to be more careful than other kids because injuries would be a lot worse for her than the average kid. But still overall, she like lived a relatively normal life. This isn't like a debilitating condition or anything like that. Now, after high school, Christine earned her nursing degree from Quinnipiac University, which, if you know anything about nursing programs, it's not the path of least resistance. Shout out to all the nurses out there. It's a tough job and it's a tough program. One of my best friends in college was in the nursing program. She would show me like her tests and like her study guides and stuff. I'm like, I don't know how you guys do it. It's really insane. Now, she actually went on to specialize in pediatric intensive care, eventually joining Inova Fairfax Medical Campus as a pediatric ICU nurse. So here's the thing is like, these are not the jobs like you take by accident. You're not just like, oh, there's a role opening here. I guess I'll take it. Like she was in the business of like dealing with some of the sickest children, like the most sick a child can be. Yeah. She is taking care of children a lot of the time at the end of their lives or just at the worst moment in their lives. This is not an easy job, not mentally, not like I'm sure it's just tough figuring out like what to do in certain situations, but also like the mental, emotional toll. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and being a mom, I'm not even a mom, and I feel like that'd be hard.
I guess I can't even imagine. Like after she had the baby, that's got to be tough. Now, colleagues described Christine as a mentor, as a fierce patient advocate, and the kind of person who went above and beyond always. And this wasn't just like a personality quirk of hers. This was baseline. She was going above and beyond every single time she could. Now, like I said, she was just 37 years old at the time of her death. Now, Christine's husband, Brendan, also grew up on Long Island, which is how their paths crossed in college. So they met in college, and he was actually studying at a different college. He went to St. Joseph's University, and he studied accounting. Now, after college, he briefly ran a children's math tutoring center to support himself for a bit, but he eventually landed in federal law enforcement as a special agent with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. So the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, this is not like they're not just like auditing taxes. They're not just dealing with like your income taxes and things like that. This is like the law enforcement arm of the IRS. And they have badges, they have guns, they have jurisdiction over financial crimes. And special agents in that division are required to be firearm certified. And Brendan carried a government issued weapon as part of his job.
So are they doing like raids or something? Like audit? Like what would you need a gun for?
Well, I think they're making arrests.
Okay.
So that's my understanding of it is like, they're basically investigating people's books, looking for fraud, like white collar financial crimes, things like that. But they are then the ones that are going and making the arrests and things. So okay. I imagine that's why they need the firearms, but I don't know for sure. It seems intense. But yeah, so Brendan and Christine got married in the summer of 2010, and they were together as a couple for nearly 20 years by the time that Christine died. So they had been married for almost 13 when she died, because she died in 2023. And in 2018, they had a daughter together. And you can find the daughter's name. There's no need to name this little girl. She was 4 years old when all of this happened. And I just don't think there's a need to name her. I'm just going to refer to her as their daughter. But yeah, just a couple years after their daughter was born was when they moved to Northern Virginia together. And they moved there for career opportunities. I don't know if they both had a career opportunity or like one of them specifically, but that's why they moved there. And by the time of Christine's murder in February 2023, the couple was living in a brick house on Stablebrook Way, both working demanding professional jobs, raising their 4-year-old together. And on the outside, it looks like a great life, like a successful life. They've done it all. They've got the house, they've got the kid, they've got the good jobs, they've got it all. But as is true for probably most relationships, it's not as perfect as it seems on the outside. They had some what I would consider, from what I've read, like pretty normal, average, like marital struggles and strifes. And one of the things that really, I think, put a burden on their relationship was having their daughter. They both have full-time careers and they really needed help. So they ended up working with an au pair service to get an au pair. And their first au pair was a girl named Amanda, and she was great. They loved her. They had a great experience with her. Christine and Amanda became very close. I read somewhere that Christine like attended Amanda's wedding or was like even part of helping plan the wedding, something like that. So they had a great experience, but Amanda eventually moved on to, something else. And by 2021, with the toddler at home, with Amanda gone, and just these very tough careers, they were looking for someone else to help them with the childcare.
Now, I know they make good money, but is like an au pair service like super expensive? I feel like that'd be like insane.
So actually, what's interesting, I don't know if they were paying her, but I remember I looked at being an au pair abroad, and I don't know, like I was looking at Italy, and a lot of these au pair services are like, you don't get paid, but you get to live with the family, and so like you don't have rent, and they feed you and stuff. Yeah, and then you work a certain, or like, no, actually that's a lie. I think you do get paid, but like it's a very small amount, like
like an allowance type?
Yeah, like maybe $10 an hour or something. Like they're cheaper almost than a normal nanny, because the whole thing is they get to come live with you for free and you like feed them.
Yeah, okay.
So they make a little bit of money. Again, I don't know what they were paying Juliana, but they found Juliana through an au pair agency. She was just 21 years old at the time of Christine's death, and she was from Brazil, from the outskirts of Sao Paulo. And she was a young woman who had grown up dreaming of America, dreaming of a better life. Now, don't get me wrong, like she didn't like grow up in like the favelas of Brazil and like had the tough. She had like a pretty average life. I read that her mom was a housekeeper, but she seemed to like, come from a pretty like average normal family, nothing crazy, not a huge struggle with poverty or anything like that. She just wanted a little bit of adventure in her life. So I don't think that it was necessarily, she's trying to escape home. It's like she's trying to like go see the world. Yeah. And this was kind of the dream for her. Now, the Washington Post described it plainly. They said she came looking for something better, and she found it in that house in Herndon, at least at first. She moved in October of 2021. She was given a room, and she became part of the household's daily rhythms. She cared for the little girl, and she was, by nature of the au pair arrangement, woven into the fabric of this family's life in a way that a regular babysitter simply isn't. Because again, she's living with them full time. Like, she's part of the household planning. What are we making for dinner? What is the daughter doing today? Like all of these things. This is a very intimate relationship to have with someone that you've never met before. Like you find this au pair online and you're like, yeah, come live with us. And it's taking a big risk.
I only know 2 stories of au pairs, and one, I don't remember the girl's name, but she was like starved and it was very sad. She passed away. And then the housemaid.
What?
So I'm like, I would never.
I don't know either of these.
Well, The Housemaid is like a book.
Oh, okay.
But they just made it into a movie with like Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried.
I've seen the commercials for it.
I went and saw it. It was really good. But that's going to bother me. She was like a younger girl. I don't remember where she was from. But she moved in and they were like horrible to her.
If anyone knows what Alexis is talking about, let us know in the comments, because I'll look into it. Maybe we'll cover it. That's so sad.
It was so sad.
Yeah. So the day of February 24th, 2023 was Brendan Banfield's birthday. It is the husband's birthday when this happens. Oh. Now, his wife, Christine, had done something that morning that was, in retrospect, heartbreaking in its ordinariness. Like, this is just like a normal day for her. She had bought tickets for Juliana to take the 4-year-old daughter to the zoo that day. So this is actually Christine's day off from work, but Brendan has to go to work. So she's like, I kind of want the house to myself a little bit. You take her to the zoo. So she wakes up, she gets the daughter ready. She hands Juliana the tickets and she sent them off for a fun day out. Then she went back to her bedroom and probably went back to bed. Now, I want to be clear. The following events I'm going to describe to you are according to what Brendan and Juliana tell the police. Okay. And we are going to later see that some of this isn't necessarily correct, it seems. So, but this is what we know of the situation from them immediately after. So Juliana tells police that Brendan had already left the house before she goes to take the daughter to the zoo, presumably to go to work. This is his average time he would leave the house to go to work. And so she says that she takes the little girl. They are heading out to the zoo, but she's driving for a little bit and she realizes that she had forgotten the lunches that she had packed to take with them. So she turns the car around and goes back to the house to pick them up. But when she pulls up to the house, she sees a car in the driveway that she does not recognize. She does not know whose car this is. And she thought it was odd because Christine went back into her bedroom.
Right.
So she presumed that Christine was going back to bed. Christine didn't mention anyone coming over. And again, this is early in the morning. Like this is, I think, around 7:30, 7:45 a.m. So why would someone be coming to visit the house?
And when did the au pair leave the house?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what time she left the house. I'm not sure. But according to Juliana, she peeked her head inside the door, like calling for Christine. And I believe she even tried to call Christine's cell phone and got no answer from either. So she just felt in her gut like something was off about this situation. And she was a little freaked out and she didn't want to go inside. And 21 years old, I feel like I would kind of be the same way. I'm a little bit of like a paranoid person.
Yeah.
But I would just be like, why isn't she answering?
Yeah.
And, who is this person that's in the driveway? Like, I don't know. So she actually calls Brendan and she is basically telling him, like, I think something's wrong. Like, I think you should come home. Okay. So Brendan agrees to come home and check it out. And when he arrived, he says that he and Juliana entered the house together with the little girl. But once inside, they heard strange noises coming from upstairs. So at this point, Brendan tells Juliana to take the little girl down to the basement while he went upstairs to investigate. And what Brendan claimed he found in the bedroom is this. He says he sees a stranger he doesn't recognize, who we now know is Joseph Ryan, but Brendan, says he doesn't recognize this man. And Joseph Ryan, he says, is on top of his wife, knife in hand, stabbing her to death in the neck. And she is bleeding out and calling for help, like yelling at Brendan, help me, help me. So Brendan announces his presence as soon as he walks in the door, saying, police officer. And he orders Ryan to drop the knife.
Okay.
Police officer dropped the knife. Now, according to Brendan, Ryan didn't drop the knife. He continued to attack Christine.
Maybe that's a smart tactic, actually.
I think it is. I think it is a smart tactic.
Yeah.
So Ryan did not listen. He didn't drop the knife. And instead, he continued to stab Christine several more times in the neck. So at this point, with no other options, Brendan took out his service weapon and he shot Joseph Ryan in the head. And he then runs over to Christine's side to try and stop the bleeding. As he was trying to stop the bleeding from Christine's neck, he says that she looked up at him and said she was sorry and that she loved him. So, one of the questions I'm sure for the officers hearing this is, what is she sorry for? Now, downstairs, Juliana took the daughter to the basement, but hearing the commotion, she had pretty soon after, immediately just headed upstairs to see what was going on. And she opens the door and she sees that Joseph Ryan has been shot and he's still moving. And at this point, Brendan Banfield tells Juliana to go get the other gun from the safe in the other room. And he tells her the code to the safe. Juliana comes back in because Brendan's holding the neck wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Juliana comes back in and where was
his gun?
It's a fantastic question. I don't know.
Okay.
On him, on the floor. He set it down.
So instead of telling her to grab that one?
Yeah, I don't understand that. Like, why would you tell her to go in the other room, go in the safe, here's the code, instead of being like, there's my gun, pick it up. Because this gun had bullets in it still. It's not like, he fired one shot to his head. He's still moving. So he tells Juliana, go get the other gun. She does. She comes back with it. And it's a weird request, right? Why don't you just pick up your gun and shoot the guy? If you're a federal agent, you're trained with this gun, you're going to make a 21-year-old girl shoot him. But then again, it's like, I get it. It's the stress of the situation. You don't know how you're going to act, whatever. But
not that because yes, you don't know how you're going to act, but I'd be like, call 911.
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess you could see if this guy just stabbed your wife and like, I think it was probably evident that she was not going to survive this probably. I get being like, fucking kill this guy. Like, I don't want him moving. What if he gets up or whatever? I don't know. So he tells Juliana to shoot the man, and she does. She shoots him in the chest, piercing his heart. And this is actually the fatal shot that kills Joseph Ryan. Now, Brendan went to the hospital with Christine. He rode in the ambulance with her, and he actually had a minor leg injury from this. I could not figure out what this fucking leg injury was, but it was no big deal. Like, I don't know if he was cut. I don't know if he just twisted his ankle. Right. I have no idea. I could not find it anywhere. But he gets treated for this. Christine is pronounced dead at the hospital, and Brendan's not at the hospital very long. Now, Joseph Ryan wasn't even brought to the hospital. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, here's the thing that's weird, is before that 911 call that I played for you, there were 2 other 911 calls that came from Juliana that morning, 15 minutes apart. So the first one was around 7:47 a.m. Then basically Juliana calls the dispatcher's like, where's your emergency, whatever. You kind of hear some noises and she hangs up. About 15 minutes later, she calls again, and again, she hangs up. And 911 is like calling her back, leaving her voicemails. Then on the third call, that's finally the call that I played for you guys, where she's like, my friend is hurt. So again, this is over 15 minutes or so. Why the first calls?
Right.
Because this is a very quick situation that's described here. Why are you calling 15 minutes before that? And if you're already on the phone with 911 and people are getting shot and stabbed upstairs, why are you hanging up instead of telling them to get here as soon as possible? So,
because at this point she hadn't gone in, heard anything.
We don't know. We don't know the timeline of when all of this happens. Based on their story, she made that first call before going upstairs and seeing what was happening.
Right.
But again, it's just if you're scared enough that you're calling 911, why are you hanging up?
Yeah, why wouldn't you be like, oh, I don't know what's going on, but there's this car here. Things are weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So
also, I didn't want to gloss over her death because that sounds terrible. I'm just scheming in my mind
of
what, trying to think why these things, because it seems so sus. But horrible death.
This is one of those stories, guys, that it is not what it seems. So if you're like, oh, I don't like this podcast, I don't want to finish this episode, fair, but please Google what happens, because this is not what it seems, and I don't want people to leave this story with a different impression. You know what I mean? But yeah, okay, so back to the story. So when the first responders arrive, they're obviously the first question is, who the fuck is this man? How are they going to figure out who this guy is and why he is here? And so at first, Brendan and Juliana are we don't know who this man is. They're describing him as a stranger and intruder, and they don't know why he's there, or they are basically just oh, he came in here to kill Christine from their perspective.
Yeah.
And again, remember, there's no signs of forced entry. So it didn't seem that Joseph Ryan had broken into the home. He had parked in the driveway and walked in through the front door, because that was the door that was unlocked. And so the question is did she let him in?
Right.
Did she know him? Or did he just fucking pick a random house, or was he stalking her? Who is this guy and why is he here? So detectives ran the registration on the vehicle in the driveway. So they were able to identify him pretty quickly as Joseph Nathan Ryan. He was 39 years old, and he was from Springfield, Virginia. Now, he lived about 25 miles from the Banfield house. Now, no one in Christine's life knew who Joseph Ryan was. This is not, a family friend. This isn't a coworker, nothing like that. Okay. So they're still trying to figure out what is the connection between them. And at the very first press conference about the case, Police Chief Kevin Davis was very careful with his words, because the public also wants to know who this guy is and why he was there. Now, he tells the public that Ryan did not appear to be a stranger to Christine, and that the investigation had established a connection between him and Christine specifically, but he declined to elaborate what that connection was. He said, quote, "I will not describe our victim, Joseph Ryan's relationship with anyone involved in the case at the moment because the investigation continues." And here's the thing. The public's perception of this statement is very quickly that Christine is having an affair with Joseph Ryan. And the other thing about this is he calls Joseph Ryan a victim. Well, what we know so far is that Joseph Ryan was found stabbing Christine to death, and her husband had to shoot and kill him in order to stop the situation or try and save his wife in like a desperate attempt that failed. But so the choice of using the word victim was interesting. Now, searching for answers of really what was the connection between them, investigators began scouring Christine's electronic devices, looking for any connection or communication with Joseph Ryan. So they searched her laptop and her phone. At least that's where they find the evidence I'm going to discover. I don't know if they searched other devices. But a search of Christine's laptop revealed that in January of 2023, and remember, she's killed February 24th, 2023, her laptop had been used to create a profile on a kink website called FetLife, like Fetish Life. And the profile was under the username Anastasia9. And while the account wasn't registered to Christine's name, the profile photo was of Christine in a swimsuit. And she identified herself in messages to men as Christine. Like, she's like, "My name's Christine. Like, what's up? I'm here."
Okay.
So this profile, this Anastasia9 profile, boasted that she was a woman looking for a man to fulfill a stranger rape fantasy.
I feel like I've heard that story before.
Yeah. We're going to get into, you guys, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you already know what I'm going to say about this, but I'm going to say it again. We'll get to it in a moment, my thoughts on this stranger rape fantasy and that type of kink. But yeah, so over the course of a few weeks, this Anastasia profile is messaging with multiple men looking for someone who would fulfill this fantasy in a very specific way. So she's looking for someone who would come over to the house without meeting face to face beforehand, because of course that would ruin the stranger part of the stranger rape fantasy. And she also asked that man bring restraints and a knife, as she was in a knife play and wanted that to be part of the rape fantasy. Now, the most important part of the fantasy was that the man would be aggressive and not stop no matter what, regardless of how Anastasia9 responded. If she screamed for help or seemed scared, that was part of the kink for her. And so she wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to get freaked out and stop if she was like screaming for help or like seemed like she didn't want this to happen. So that was just part of the fantasy. She wanted to fight back and be overpowered by this man. Now, one prospective respondent wrote back that the concept was, quote, "very hot," end quote, but that, quote, "the way you explain it does not look great on my side if anything were to go wrong," end quote.
Wow.
And I would just like to say huzzah to that man for having the good sense to walk away from what was being thrown out there here. Mm-hmm. And here's my thing, guys. I know there's people who are into BDSM. It's consensual. It's safe. It's whatever. And where I can't with the rape fantasy shit, though. And whether your fantasy is to rape somebody or your fantasy is to be raped, I personally believe that is not a healthy fantasy to have, and it's probably hurting you, and you should probably talk to somebody about it. Now, specifically, the people who have the fantasy of raping someone else, that is fuck no. Nope. Bad. Even if you're like, I would never rape somebody, I'm only going to find these other people who are into this fantasy to do it with me. I feel like you cannot trust yourself that much.
Yeah.
You should not trust yourself that much, because the more you do it and whatever, it's going to start to become like that norm. It's going to be mundane, and you're going to need just a little bit more.
Especially with like strangers. Like I read like a lot of like dark romance, smutty book type things. And like the only way I could see like that being like even remotely acceptable, like if this, I don't, it's not for me, but say like, I feel like that would have to be something like established in like a
Like a
relationship with
maybe.
a person where you have like clear safe words, like all these things.
It just seems like, why do you
still,
want?
Yeah, like maybe you should seek some therapy to figure out why you want these things. But like, I don't.
At the very least, like, get a therapist and talk to them about it to like keep you to establish boundaries that you, so they'll know if you start like pushing past them and like going down a dark path. But yeah, I just personally, I don't think that this is a healthy fantasy, but I agree with you. It's definitely okay. If you're like married, you've been married for 20 years and like you trust this person with your life. Okay. I'm not going to tell you guys what to do, but yeah, going out and like seeking this from strangers online, I just think
I feel like this shouldn't be legal.
someone's going to get mad in the comments like I'm kink shaming, but I just don't think it's good for you. Like on either side, it's just, it cannot be healthy for you. And like, so I say this out of love. You should just talk
I think
to
like
somebody.
the idea of it in like a relation type sense is like, from what I see, because like I'm in like a lot of groups about dark romance books, like Rex and stuff, like on Facebook, Kindle groups and stuff.
Wait,
it's so
I didn't
funny.
know this about you.
But like a lot of people who like kind of describe that fantasy type thing, it's more about just having someone who wants you like so much, but it's still like so clearly.
But that's why I don't get the rape fantasy.
Decided,
They
like,
don't,
what
the
it
whole
is.
fantasy is that they don't want you to have sex with them.
Yeah.
And then you're like, that's like getting you excited. I just don't think, I think especially the person who's like, my fantasy is to rape somebody, to be the rapist in this role play scenario, is like, there's something that's not good.
No.
That's not good. You're not going down a good path. But with that being said, we're going to keep going. I just like, it's one of those things, like I've heard of other podcasts, not this case specifically, but like similar, there's other cases that have this like rape fantasy thing that comes into play. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to kink shame. I'm like, but like this is.
There's like a different level.
You're talking about it on a true crime podcast. So like it didn't go well, guys.
Yeah.
This rape fantasy thing didn't go very well. It's dangerous. Okay.
I definitely feel like there shouldn't be websites for rape meetups.
Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, so this guy is fucking smart and he's like, this isn't gonna really look great on my side if something goes wrong. And like, yeah, exactly. It would not. And I mean, this guy, he's probably thanking his lucky stars that he did not respond to this ad. So she's messaging with multiple different men, Anastasia 9. And there's a lot of men that are just like not really interested in what she's proposing. But then came along Joe Ryan, and he was going by the username Taco Supreme 7000. And like, guys, I hate, this man has lost his life, but what an odd choice for a fetish website username. Taco Supreme. Like, is this an innuendo? Is taco
Like vagina?
Yeah. Like, is that what it is? I don't know. Or does he just, is he
Vagina
just
Supreme? Or does he really like Taco Bell?
I don't know. Or does he just like Taco Bell? Or is it a vagina innuendo? I don't know. But yeah, after about a month of messaging with Joe, he agreed to all aspects of this proposed fantasy. And actually, after a bit, the messaging had moved from the FetLife website to an app called Telegram, which is like an encrypted messaging app. So it's similar to like if you send messages on Snapchat, or I think WhatsApp is also encrypted and whatever. So it's kind of just like this added layer of protection. I don't know exactly what's encrypted or when, because obviously, like if you leave the messages up, like someone can go in and read them. But I think if they're deleted,
you can't get them back.
You can't get them back, is my understanding, which I didn't really dive into that, but I think your text messages, if you delete them, they can get them back. Now, the messages, like the message chain between them, even showed one voice call, and you can't actually find transcripts of the actual messages, just like the way that they talk about them in court. But my understanding is it seemed like Joseph Ryan had requested to talk on the phone before coming over to do this rape fantasy. He's like, I just want to make sure like you're actually a lady on the other side of the phone type of thing. So I presume he's just trying to make sure he's not like being catfished or something like that. So there's a voice call, and we of course we don't know what was discussed on this voice call. But with that, it seemed pretty clear that Christine, had planned to start this affair with Joe Ryan, or at least have this one-time fling with Joe Ryan. Though, according to the messages, the day of their deaths was the first day that they had ever met in person. there was no evidence of them ever meeting in person before this. So this is weird, right? If he goes over there to kill her, because I think at first the thought was like, okay, well, maybe this is they're having an affair. He's like in love with her. He's like, leave your husband. She's like, no. And then he like snaps and stabs her. And then the husband comes home and whatever. But it's like, that's not the case. Like this is probably like from all the evidence we have, it seems as if this is the very first time they ever met.
And I don't know much about knife play, but I don't think it's like stabbing.
No, yeah, I don't think so either. And that's the thing is Joe Ryan, we'll get into like his background in history, but like he was into knife play. So he wasn't even specifically looking for this rape fantasy plot, but because the knife play was a part of it, that's what he was looking for. And he was like, yeah, I'll do whatever you want. But that was his thing, was the knife play. And by the way, if you're like me and you're like, what does knife play mean? It's literally just people like cutting each other superficially to draw blood during sex. And that's one, you know what?
Still don't want to kink shame, but
if that's your thing, as long as you don't like actually, you know, cause serious injury and the other person consenting, sure, go ahead. I'm sorry but I just that's tough. I have more of a problem with the rape thing because the consent thing and just where that can lead. Yeah. But again, even with a knife play, I feel like that could escalate. Yes. I feel like sexual fetishes and behaviors, they escalate over time. And like that's where I just feel like.
And also it's like 2023.
This is 2023.
So like no like voice or video calls.
I'm
like catfishing is such a thing. Even like regardless of everything else that's going on, like that's crazy to just a stranger on the internet.
And that's the thing is like, to just trust this situation. It's tough for me to put myself in those shoes of just being like, this seems legit. Like, yeah, this is a good idea.
I feel like I'm like, I don't want to make assumptions about anything, but like maybe this guy is like a loner.
We'll talk about Joseph Ryan a little bit. He's an interesting guy. But yeah, so now the question is, was he just like a fucking predator?
Right.
And he's like, I want to kill somebody. And he's looking for a victim online. But then again, it's like, if your fantasy is raping someone and you're going to kill them after, why don't you just actually, sorry, this sounds really fucked up, but like, why don't you just actually rape somebody and not have a consenting person?
Yeah. Plus now you have like a whole record.
Yeah. So I don't know. So this is all starting to seem very odd to detectives. The more they're digging into this evidence, the more questions they have than answers. You know what I mean? So the instructions that were sent to Ryan on the Telegram app were very specific. Because these messages were still in the app. They were on her computer. Okay. So like they were still able to pull up the messages even though it was like this encrypted messaging app, presumably because they weren't deleted from the app. That's my understanding of it.
Now, this is just solely her computer or like her and her
This
husband?
This is her laptop. Okay. Yes. Now, so Ryan was told to leave his phone in the car to make sure that he brought a knife, zip ties, and chains, and to go through the front door, which Christine would leave unlocked. Then when he went upstairs, he would, go to the master bedroom where he would find Anastasia, a.k.a. Christine, in bed asleep, and his job was to tie her up, cut off her clothing, and rape her. Now, Anastasia, 9, was very clear that he was not to stop even if she looked terrified or began to call for help. Now, with this new evidence, it did seem there's a lot of questions, but it seemed pretty clear. Christine had invited him over for this rape fantasy and knife play, thinking no one would be home. She bought tickets to the zoo for Juliana and the daughter so they would be out of the house. She knew that her husband would be at work. He left before this. And yet, unfortunately, because things went awry, fortunately, Brendan ended up coming home to find this man on top of his nude wife with a knife, stabbing her, and he instinctively shot the man to save his wife. And while Brendan had admitted to the killing, he's like, yeah, I shot him. It was clearly in self-defense, right? Like, this man's fucking stabbing your wife. I think that if there's ever a time that you get to shoot somebody,
this is it.
This is it. But again, it's like, I keep going back to, I think it's so weird that then Juliana shot him too.
Yeah.
And we know that he was still alive after the first gunshot wound. Like, it was the second gunshot wound to the chest that Juliana fired that killed him. So it's not like, oh, he was dead and then there was a second shot fired after his death or anything. But it's just like, why are you telling the 21, you're a federal agent. Why are you telling the 21-year-old girl to shoot him who, as far as you know, has never shot a gun before? We're going to learn that that's not the case. But like, from what they're saying, she's never shot a gun before. And then even if you're going to tell her to shoot him, why are you going to say, go in the other room, get the other gun, and here's the code, and then come back when your gun's there? Like, your gun's in the room somewhere.
I feel like that's, even in a high-stress situation, I just don't see that being
just
like your
weird.
Go-to. Like, especially if you're focusing on your wife, it's like, the gun's on the floor, go get it.
Yeah.
Like, not like, hey, let me yell out this code to you.
Yeah, it's just odd. And it's something that, again, I'm telling you, like, this story, it's not what it seems. There's you guys are in for a fucking roller coaster ride. You're gonna think one thing, and then you're like, fuck no. And you're gonna be like, no, it's this. And then you're like, no, it's not that either. It's this.
Well, and I'm always on the side of like, oh, the husband did it.
Yeah.
But I also am like,
it's a weird
why
situation.
was he stabbing her? Like, that does seem like, if it was this elaborate setup, like the husband, because this is just where my head's going right now. Like, the husband made this account on her computer, set all this up, but he wouldn't know that he was going to like actually stab her. So he could shoot her.
Yes.
Or shoot him, sorry.
These are all good questions. These are all good questions. But like, what I'm going to say about the thing about Juliana, like going into the other room, getting the gun, this is something that, like, there's a resolution to the story. I'm going to tell you guys, we're going to get there eventually. But like, I still do not understand why she went and got this other gun from this other room. Like, you're going to go down probably 3 or 4 different theories in your mind of what happened here. And not a single one of those does that make sense. That's all I'm going to say about it. But yeah, so the question is, like what you said, why was Joe Ryan stabbing Christine? Like, is he just some predator? Is he looking for someone to murder? Did something go awry? Like, how did this all happen? So, of course, they're looking into, like, well, who is this Joe Ryan guy? And so I'm going to tell you about him. So he was born 2 days before Christmas, and his mother, Deidre Fisher, said that the holiday was always special because of him. The 2 birthdays, this is the way I read it. I think when they say the 2 birthdays, they mean his birthday and Jesus's.
Okay.
But yeah, the 2 birthdays layered together into something that felt abundant. Lots of joy, lots of happiness for Deirdre. And we're going to see that Joe and his mother, Deirdre, are very, very close. Very close. I would say more close than most 39-year-old men are with their mother. And there's nothing wrong with loving your mother. I get it. I think I'm closer with my parents than I think most people my age are.
I think I am too.
Like, my parents fucking rock. Some people just don't like their parents. They're like, my mom's so annoying, whatever. Like, my parents rock.
Yeah.
So, like, I get, I like hanging out with my parents. I like doing stuff with them, whatever. So, no hate to Joe, but I do just think that it's a fact that he was very close with his mother.
Well,
like,
to go back to, like, Facebook groups, there's, like, a whole Facebook group dedicated to moms and their sons.
Dude, you know what we should do a Patreon bonus episode on is we should read out the post from Are We Dating the Same Guy? If you guys don't know, this is probably worldwide at this point, but like there are Facebook groups that are like local to your area and they're all called Are We Dating the Same Guy? And so like there's Are We Dating the Same Guy Cleveland? Are we dating the same guy New York? And girls will go and post pictures of like this guy they're dating and they're like, is anyone else dating this guy? Or do you know anyone who's dated and are there any red flags and whatever? And these posts get blown up of girls commenting like, that guy fucking ruined my life, whatever. And they're insane. We should do a Patreon episode.
There's this man that I went on a few dates with and was talking to for a few months before my now husband, whatever. But he is on this Facebook. Like anyone in Northeast Ohio will know this man's name when I say it. I'll save it for Patreon. But
my first boyfriend from high school
every other week. He should be like their fucking mascot. I'm like, I've deleted him on everything. And this man still haunts me. Like I see him once a week. I'm like, it's got to be him posting anonymously at this point. Like, it's crazy.
He's like, actually, I think this guy's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Actually, I feel like he has a bad rep, but he's actually really sweet. Mm-hmm. But yeah, okay, so.
But yeah, moms and sons, fucking weird. I mean, not all, obviously, but there's like enough that there's a whole Facebook group dedicated to like how weird.
Yes, that is interesting. I don't think that's the case here. Like it didn't seem, but they're just especially close. Like he called his mother constantly and they had this kind of friendship, she said, that most people don't get to have with their parents. She said that like he was her confidant, her ally, and he would just always encourage her. He'd be like, Mom, you got this. Mom, you should be kinder to yourself. And he actually even took care of her when she was sick with cancer. Like she lived in Florida and he flew down there and like took care of her until she was better.
Sweet.
And from all accounts, everyone who knew him, he was a sweet guy and he was a good person and normal and not, you know, there were no red flags of like, oh, he's a murderer or he's violent.
Yeah.
He had no criminal record. And everyone who knew him was like, he would never go stab a woman. He would never hurt a woman. And I know that we know that he's into some of this kink stuff. We're going to get to what people say about this, but everyone said that he was just a good guy. Now, Joe's aunt, Sangeeta Ryan, she described him as inquisitive, curious, smart, charming. And she says this with like a little laugh that turns into a cry. It's heartbreaking, like watching the video. She goes, and so dang talkative. And she like chokes up saying it. And that's just like the way he's described is like this. He sounds like a great guy, like, you know. Now he loved painting; that was like his favorite hobby. He also loved martial arts. It was something that he practiced. That was kind of like his exercise. And he also had a particular tenderness for neglected animals, like especially dogs, the ones that no one else wanted. So like he, you know, would go to the pound and like play with the dogs and stuff like that. But he seemed very kind from what people knew of him. Now, he had actually moved in with his elderly grandmother in Virginia to take care of her in her old age so she didn't have to go into a home.
Okay, yeah, this is a stand-up guy.
He sounds like a stand-up guy, and that's just the type of person he was. They're like, he was just selfless. And when he was killed, his grandmother's grief was so horrific that she couldn't remain in that house that they shared together. Even though, you know, nothing happened to him there, it just had too many memories. And so she sold the house and moved away. Now, like what I said, Joe Ryan was also a man who engaged in consensual kink and role play. This is where it gets a little odd, but we're going to be careful with our words.
Okay.
His own mother confirmed this openly.
Okay.
She knew about it. Why his mother knew, I'm not exactly sure. But she was emphatic that Joe was careful about consent, that he was gentle with his partners, and that he was not a violent person that wanted to hurt anyone. Again, he is into knife play. I think there's some other things. I don't think it's just knife play, but this is one of the things for him.
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of like BDSM stuff and knife play.
Okay.
But it's hard for me to understand how that isn't hurting somebody, but I guess whatever. But yeah, she says, quote, Joe never at 39 had ever struck a woman or been violent with a woman, end quote. And there's no one that says he did. Like there's no evidence. Again, no criminal record. There's no ex-girlfriends being like, oh, you know, he wouldn't stop when I said no, or he wanted this weird stuff that scared me, or he hurt me, or anything like that. Now, I mean, not to say that there's not someone out there that did, I don't know, but there's just no evidence of it. Now, Deirdre was adamant that despite Joe responding to this rape fantasy inquiry, he never would actually hurt someone. He never would actually rape someone with, you know, no consent or whatever.
Right.
And he never would have stabbed Christine. Like he wasn't a killer. That's, again, this is according to his mom. She explains that Joe only went over there to participate in this consensual and mutual fantasy. And this idea does seem somewhat bolstered by the messages and like what we know.
How many times was she stabbed?
7.
Okay. Because I'm trying to think too. I'm like, okay, if this was like
Here's the thing is 7 times in the neck. The deepest wound was 2.5 inches deep.
Yeah, like very intentional.
So this isn't like, oh, it was very shallow wounds and he accidentally nicked an artery.
She was fighting back and he had a knife and like
this is like he is stabbing her in the neck. It's not like he's trying to like lightly slice her neck and he nicks her carotid or something.
Yeah.
Like this is
gruesome.
This is intentional to kill somebody. Okay. That's a great question. I'm glad that you asked that because I don't know that I actually put that in the script, but I think that's good to clarify. But yeah, so in the messages, Christine had given him her name, her address, and her photo because her photo's on the profile photo. And she does identify herself as Christine, even though the username is Anastasia9. So these are all things that you could easily verify online, like if you wanted to, like reverse image search, find her Facebook, like look up the address, who's the house registered to, or whatever. Like,
which, by the way, that's so creepy. When I bought my house, my name was in the newspaper with my address. And I'm like, what if I had a stalker?
That's insane. That's insane.
I didn't know that was a thing, but sorry.
No, but that's what I'm saying is like, you know, he could check all this stuff and he talks to her on the phone. They do a voice call. He can check that, okay.
I really want to know about this voice call.
This is all, you know, true. Now, she had also explicitly stated what she wanted for weeks over messages. So it's not just like a one time, like, come over right now and do this. And then, like, he's checking with her, like, no, tell me exactly what you want. Like, what, I don't know exactly what the messages said. That's just me going off rip. But he seems to be somewhat careful about this really to a certain extent. Was he careful enough? I don't think so. But he seems to be putting effort into making sure that this is a consensual situation and that he's actually talking to who he thinks he's talking to. And so here's the thing is like his mom being like, he would never hurt a woman. He would never, like, yeah, he has these kinks and whatever, but he would never. It kind of comes across, I think at first, as like the ramblings of a woman who loved her son dearly and was perhaps a little bit too close with him. I think it's a little unusual and not common for a mother to know about her son's sexual kinks or whatever.
Right. Like, I'm very open with my mom, but not like in details like that.
Really? You talk to your mom about that stuff? Okay, so maybe it's not as unusual.
Like my mom, like, we're just, there's a no secrets family type thing. But I'm not into anything. I don't want to say weird. It's not weird. No kink shame. I'm not into anything extreme. So like I would never, but I'm not going into details as to like what I'm doing
about this stuff, right?
No. But I'm trying to think because my brother's kind of like, my brother's also gay. So maybe there's a little different. We'll joke around with like men.
You know
what?
Like, you've convinced me it's not as strange. Or it's not as unusual or uncommon as I maybe thought. Yeah. I get like you telling me that I'm like I don't really think that's weird that you like tell, but I mean,
my husband when he like came into our family, he was like, y'all are fucking weird. He's like, y'all are way too open in this family, and I'm like, yes, it's fair, it's fair.
Interesting.
There's just never been any like we're like whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe it's not as you guys let me know in the comments. What do you guys think? Like, do you think it's strange or no? Be
clarify, I'm not going into details with my mother about my sex life.
And I don't want to say strange. Like, strange isn't the right word. I want to know how common it is. So this is the thing: is like we hear this all the time in cases where like a man or whoever does something horrible, and their parents are like, "My kid could never do that," because they love their kid and they see their kid as their child that they raise, and it's just not believable to them, even though this person really did this. But what if it's not just like, you know, the mom believing it simply because she wants to believe it? Like, what if it's just simply not true? What if he didn't do this? What if he would not hurt a woman? And this was a possibility that detectives were genuinely considering, not just because they simply trusted Deidre's opinion of her son, who, by all accounts, was actively responding to rape fantasy ads. I think for police, that is a red flag.
Yeah.
But because the evidence itself began pointing them in a different direction, nothing was adding up to what the story that was told to them about what happened. And everyone was like, Joe Ryan would never do this. Christine, there is no evidence that Christine was into BDSM of any kind. No one in her life knew about this, though her husband did confirm that Christine was into BDSM.
Okay.
No one else who knew Christine knew that she was into BDSM. So now remember, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit, but after the police got to the home that day, Brendan goes to the hospital with Christine, and Juliana went to the Fairfax County Police Headquarters with the daughter, where she remained from approximately 9:30 a.m. to just after 6 p.m. So she's there, you know, giving her statement, basically. And she was actually taken to what police describe as soft interview rooms. And these are basically just like more comfortable interview rooms that are reserved for like witnesses and victims rather than like perpetrators or like criminals, someone who's been arrested, they go to the hard interview rooms. And while she's there, there was actually a victim services specialist named Sally Faez who was assigned to work with Juliana and to work with the young daughter. Now, Juliana was questioned. She did have to give a statement. And this is when she gives them the story that I outlined for you earlier.
Okay.
Now, she was also talked to at the scene, but that was with first responders, not necessarily the detectives on the case. Brendan was also talked to at the scene, and his story matched Juliana's story. There was nothing conflicting between the two. They told the same story, and everything seemed to line up perfectly.
Side note, you don't have to leave this in. Is this where there's like a video of like the body cam footage shows her like outside of the house talking to the police? She's like in front of a garage.
I don't know because I listened to audio of it.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the same one.
Because I saw like something
There is body cam
recently, like
footage.
similar to, I didn't watch it,
And
but
they're asking her what happened, and she's like, can't think of the word for gun or whatever.
yeah, and she's like being very weird.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I just remember seeing that not that long ago.
Yes. So yeah, their stories are lining up perfectly to a T. And around 6 p.m., after, Juliana's been there all day, the police had arranged for Juliana and the daughter to stay in a hotel just because obviously they're not sending them back to the crime scene, and they just wanted to put them in a safe, calm place while the investigation continued. Now, part of the victim services specialist, Sally, part of her job was to take them there, to get them checked into the hotel, make sure they're settled. Remember, this girl's 21 years old.
Yeah.
Like, she's a young girl. Now, Sally would later testify that while in the hotel lobby, she heard the 4-year-old girl turn to Juliana and ask, quote, "Can I call you mommy now?" To which Juliana responded, yes.
Ew. Okay.
The girl then asked, quote, "Are you going to marry my daddy?" End quote. And Juliana responded, "I wish." Christine had only been dead for a matter of hours. First of all, Juliana, what a dumb ass fucking little bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Why the fuck would you say yes and I wish to that? And granted, I don't think they're like just sitting there in conversation with Sally. Like, I think Sally overhears this.
Yeah.
But what the fuck? Number 2, what does this little girl know? Like, I assume she's probably been told that her mommy died.
She's seen some stuff.
Why is she asking, "Are you going to marry my daddy?"
Mm-hmm.
So the little girl fucking knows something. And
Devil's advocate, you could be like, oh, maybe she just mom's out. I don't know. But
yeah,
her answers back are what's even more, because like, I don't know, like maybe a 4-year-old would just be like, "Oh, are you my mom now?" Since like she lives with her, maybe that's like a but then for like Juliana to be like, "Oh yeah, I wish."
Yeah, you can call me mommy.
That's where, yeah.
That's insane. That's insane. And
That's what makes it more.
This poor little girl, what I personally believe that this little girl, not that she knew that about what was going on, but like she knew something that a sweet little girl should not know about her parents and about adult situations. Right. She knew something, and it's like, this poor little girl. I feel for her because, yeah. Now, while Brendan was cooperative with the first responders, he gives them his statement. He explains what happens. There's body cam footage of him answering all of their questions. And in the body cam footage, like, he seems very emotionally distressed. Like, he seems, to me, there's nothing, and again, it's like, you never know how you're going to react, whatever, but there's like nothing super off about his reaction. Even in the 911 call and stuff, like, there are people who pick it apart, but like, to me, I'm just like, that sounds like a man who's like afraid and like trying to save lives right now. But here's the thing is, like, he's cooperative at the scene, but after he gets released from the hospital, he becomes much less cooperative. He simply declined to speak with detectives any further. Now, this seems sus, right? But you have to remember, he did admit to shooting Joe Ryan.
Right.
And while this seems like a pretty clear self-defense thing, this guy's a federal agent. But like, he knows his rights, and one of your rights is to like not speak with police.
Get a lawyer.
And to get a lawyer. And I would imagine that any federal agent or anyone that, is an attorney or an officer that this situation happened to, like, they walk in, find someone stabbing their wife, and they shoot the person, I would imagine that they're probably going to do the same thing. They're going to get a lawyer before they talk.
Well, I would look so suspicious just because of like how much true crime I listen to. If anything were to happen, like say to my husband or like anybody close to me, I would get a lawyer, not do a lie detector test. Like there's so many things that do seem suspicious.
This, I can't even tell you, doing this podcast has made me like think through the like most intrusive thought. Like, what if someone, something horrible happens to someone I know, they're going to be playing this podcast in court like a motherfucker. Exhibit 500, and it's just me being like, fucking strangle him.
Right.
or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God.
I feel like I'm lawyering up immediately.
Yeah. So,
especially in a situation like that where you actually did kill somebody.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think that's odd.
Again, he didn't fire the fatal shot, but like at this point, they haven't done an autopsy. That hasn't been confirmed. But yeah, I mean, I would get a lawyer too.
Yeah.
Here's the thing is like, he doesn't talk to them again. It's not like he gets a lawyer and he's like, all right, like, let's sit down and let me explain this. He does not talk to them after this. So I wouldn't go that far if this were me and I would get a lawyer, but I would.
And still want to help. Like, it's still your wife.
Yeah, I would be like, let's fucking clear this up because I didn't, I was trying to save my wife's life.
Right.
But yeah, so without talking to Brendan or without getting more information from him, they've already gotten what they think they can get out of Juliana. They start to focus in on the physical evidence, which again did not exactly match the story told by Juliana and Brendan. Now, later at trial, there's a prosecution expert, Iris Daly-Graff, who testified that the blood patterns at the scene, they painted a different picture, okay? So Ryan's body, she noted, appeared to have been moved after he was shot. At least we don't know after the first shot or the second shot, but after he was shot. So there's blood flow from his head wound that went in multiple different directions, suggesting that his body had been repositioned while the blood was still wet.
Okay.
Now, Ryan was found with his hands crossed over his chest. If you remember, his one hand was like over the gunshot wound. Expert testimony suggested that this seemed extremely staged. This is not something that you would see often in gunshot wound victims where they're just like laying there with the hand over the wound. I don't know. Sometimes these experts are full of shit. So I don't know how true that is. Like I couldn't find any like statistics on it.
And I don't know how quick like a fatal gunshot wound is. Like I could see if that was the first shot, you would like grab it wherever's like shot.
Yeah.
But if you were shot in the head first.
That's why. And it's also like, how much can you control your body after those types of shots? Even if you wanted to like grab at it. I don't know. So the hand is placed over the gunshot wound that Juliana had fired it. And she had fired this with a Glock 43X that had been purchased by Brendan less than a month before the murders on January 28th.
Interesting.
Because remember, he fired the first shot with his service weapon. Then there's this other one.
When did this kink website thing happen? January what?
It was early January. It had been almost 2 months that the profile had been active before Christine died, because she died at the end of February.
Okay.
Now, police found the timing of this Glock purchase very, very fucking suspicious, obviously. So they start diving into Brendan's history with firearms. Like, did he own any other guns? Because, like, why does he need the second gun when he has his service weapon? All of these things. And this is when they discovered that he had checked into a shooting range multiple times in late 2022. And as a federal agent, it's not that suspicious. He's got to like do some target practice, keep up to date. But it becomes more suspicious when you note that Juliana had checked in with him at the shooting range each time.
Okay. Teaching her how to shoot.
Yes. Now, Juliana's own social media posts confirmed these little shooting range dates, or at least one of them, because she posted a photo on her story of her holding a gun. Like she's like holding it up with two hands, like, with the headphones, the big earmuffs on, and she's aiming at a target. And the caption on it says, "This hottie takes a good photo." Now no one else is in the photo. It's just of her, but this hottie takes a good photo. She's posting this on Instagram in 2022. Now, investigators also discovered a photo posted to Juliana's story on December 30th, 2022, showing her nude in a bathtub with a man whose face is covered by an emoji. The photo was captioned, quote, "Oh my God, I've been so head over heels in love since July of last year," end quote. And I will note that these these captions are written in Portuguese. I used Google Translate to translate them, but you get the gist of it. What a dumb bitch. Mm-hmm. What a dumb bitch. You're literally like, okay, we've been having an affair since July of last year. Again, his face is covered by an emoji, but spoiler alert, guys, it's Brendan Banfield.
Of course.
Okay?
I mean, she would have been a 20-year-old girl. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
but,
like, it makes sense how dumb she is.
And also, he's dumb.
Oh, yeah. Like, why are you... Unless he doesn't know. Like, does he not follow her on Instagram? I don't know. But
I don't know. I don't know either. But, like, what the fuck? So, with all of this evidence emerging, a new theory began to take shape. And it was more calculated than anyone had initially imagined. Investigators now believed that Juliana and Brendan had been involved in an affair and that together they had conspired to kill Christine. The FetLife profile created in her name, the catfishing of Joe Ryan, the rape fantasy used to lure him to the house. They think none of it was random. It was all a setup designed to make Joe Ryan look like Christine's killer. But of course, a setup only works if there are no loose ends. So Joe Ryan could not be left alive to tell his true version of events. And so the theory went one step further, that Brendan and Juliana decided that they would kill him together, with Brendan positioning himself as the hero, the protector, a man who had no choice but to act to save his wife. And Juliana, this protector of the little girl, taking that one final step to make sure everyone in the house was okay. And that's really the only theory behind why I still don't fucking understand why she shot him with a different gun.
That I don't understand. Because I'm like, okay, I do understand her. Like, maybe his thinking is like, no, you have to shoot too. So you're in on this with me.
So you're as culpable as I am. That's most people's theory on it.
Yeah. But to go get a different gun is just...
Why a different gun?
So unnecessary.
And it just makes it seem weird in my mind, because we're going to see that this is all extremely well thought out. Like, in part 2, we're going to go through what actually happened here. What I don't understand is he's very calculated about a lot of stuff. He thinks through these fucking details. He's a smart guy. Why the other gun? In my mind, he had some purpose behind her going to get this other gun and firing the next shot.
It would have made more sense if they schemed it to be like, oh, she knew this safe code, knew where it was because I've taken her shooting with me. So she just automatically went on her own to get it.
Yeah.
And then came in with it.
And we're going to hear, she did know the safe code. He wasn't yelling the safe code to her. This was all part of it. This was all part of a plan. And she went into the safe and got the other gun. But why the other gun? I can't imagine that she just went rogue and went and got it. I mean, maybe she did. Maybe the plan was for him to shoot Joe Ryan, but then he was still moving because we do know he was alive after that first shot. And she panicked and went and didn't see his gun, and she just went rogue and went and got the other one. I don't know.
And the only way I think it would make sense is if she got it before she even went into the room.
Yeah, maybe she had the gun on her as a backup in case anything went wrong. Maybe she never even went to the safe, but she does end up talking, and she says she went into the other room and got it. But I don't know. Maybe she's misremembering. I just don't understand it. And I think it's one of those things where in my mind, I feel as if it was part of the plan, he had a reason for it.
Yeah.
And it's just
never been.
Something went wrong, and so it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But I want to know so fucking bad, because it just seems like this really throws a weird twist in your story that I feel is kind of a red flag in your story. But yeah. So detectives set out with this new theory, and of course they're looking for the evidence to prove it. And we know of some things. We know the blood from his head, it doesn't make sense with their story. Juliana's I'm your mommy now, all of this. But they need to prove, because this all rests on one thing, right? This whole new theory, this all rests on that Christine was not the person sending those messages. Right. That it was Juliana and Brendan sending those messages. And here's the thing. This is where it gets really complicated, because the digital forensics could be read in two very different ways. And we're going to see it at trial. The Fairfax County Police's lead digital forensics detective, Brendan Miller, he testified at trial that all of the activity on the FetLife account, the Gmail account that was created in order to use for the FetLife account, and the Telegram account, All of this activity at the center of the investigation originated from Christine Banfield's own laptop and her cell phone. There are some things on her cell phone as well. It's her devices, her accounts, I say with air quotes, her activity. And he found zero evidence that Christine had ever lost control of any of these devices. And what this means is like there's no evidence that they had been taken from her, that they had been hacked, or that they had been used without her knowledge. And there is zero evidence that they had ever been used, that these accounts had ever been accessed when Christine was not in the same location as the device.
Okay.
So basically, they're comparing the location data from her phone to when the FetLife stuff was accessed on her computer. And they're able to locate like where the computer was used, I believe using the IP address. I don't know exactly how that works, but they can see that all of this activity on all of these accounts occurred when Christine was in the same place as the device that was being used, whether it was the phone or the laptop. So it's never like, oh, there were messages being sent, but Christine was at the grocery store, or she was at work that day, or, you know, her mom says that she was here, or there's photos of her at this place, or her cell phone showed she took a call 30 miles away, but none of that. It all added up to Christine was in the same location every time those accounts were accessed. Therefore, the defense argues that it was Christine herself. These are her devices. How they're sending these messages while Christine's in the other room. They're getting access to her phone. How does that make sense? The defense is saying the evidence shows that Christine had access to all of these devices while this activity was happening. And it's true. That is true. But the defense is, of course, arguing that that's proof that Christine sent them.
Right.
Now, of course, no one technically knows. I personally believe, and I think this is okay to say because the case has already gone to trial and stuff. I personally believe it was Juliana and Brendan.
Yeah.
Sending the messages.
Does she have like an iPhone and an Apple computer?
I don't know. I don't know what kind they were.
Because I'm like, technically, wouldn't that, like if they just used her computer and didn't take her phone, I don't know how linked they are.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. It seemed like it was used on her phone, but I think it was just the Gmail account. I don't think it was like, she wasn't like on FetLife on her phone, but I don't know.
I do wonder how they were able to do that without her like ever finding evidence of it. That's crazy.
Here's the thing is there is a defense forensic expert, Harry Lidsky, who offered another analysis of all of this data. Again, he confirms that, you know, she's in the same location every time these are being used. But he also talks about how Christine's laptop moved fluidly between her normal activity and the FetLife related activity, including a window where Christine's work website was accessed, and then 24 seconds later, there was FetLife activity. So he's saying like, oh, these are the normal things she would normally do before the FetLife thing or on days when she didn't access FetLife. She's doing we're seeing very similar patterns of usage, and then she's also accessing the FetLife. And that one occasion where there's only 24 seconds between, the idea is there's no way that they snatch her computer and in 24 seconds they're on FetLife without her being like, what's up? This is weird. My argument is they clicked on her fucking work website. What the fuck? Like, if she's like me, like my work laptop, I have all the passwords saved in the browser. So, like, my browser automatically fills all that in. So, I don't know if it was a password-protected site. She's a nurse, so I would assume so.
Right.
But I think it's, like, they're smart. Sorry. Brendan's smart, and he thought this through. And he, you know, knew she would usually, you know, be on her work website and whatever. And so then he goes to FetLife, and he makes sure to do it while she's in the home.
Yeah. That's
but
crazy.
I don't think this proves that it was Christine.
Oh, yeah, no. I don't for a second think she did any of that. But that is crazy.
Yeah. So with all this being said about like, okay, Christine's in the same location. Yes, there's like fluid activities between her normal stuff and the FetLife. But there's also no evidence that Brendan and Juliana were ever confirmed to be away when the FetLife activity happened either.
Okay.
So like when the activity happens, there is no evidence that any of the three people were not present.
Yeah.
So if you're using the argument of like this could be, that means it could be Christine. Well, that also means it could be Brendan and Juliana. And that's kind of the debate where we're going to start in part 2. We're going to leave it off here for the day. But in part 2, we're going to kind of go over mainly the evidence of like how police get to the conclusions they get to. And then we're going to go through in detail of what actually happened here and the trials and everything. And there are some twists and turns in part 2 as well. This is an insane story. So this is a little bit of a longer episode. I hope you guys were intrigued by the story. If you were, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating wherever you're listening. If you guys want to sign up for Patreon, get ad-free episodes, the link is in the show notes. But I think that's it. Court is adjourned. Bye.
Bye.